Here we are, Monday morning grades once again, and we have an interesting Sunday, man. It was a lot of unexpected performances, and the weather played a huge part once again. If you play college DFS, then you're very schooled on that front. But let's dive right in. We have a lot to cover. So A plus at quarterback, Andy Dalton. 21 out of 25, 84%, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs, 149.6 passer rating. He averaged 10.4 yards per attempt, and they won 27-20. I mean, I have to give it to him. It's a near flawless performance. It's the closest to a perfect passer rating, I think, than I've seen all year for somebody that's attempted at least 25 passes. So, all right. For the A grade, we have Jacoby Brissett. Another out of nowhere performance against the Bills. 28 out of 41, 68%, 324 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 116.3 passer rating, 7.9 yards per attempt. They lost that neutral site game 31-23. At running back, and this isn't going to surprise anybody, Tony Pollard. 189 total yards. I think only 21 touches. He had just a crazy game. 15 carries, 80 yards, averaged 5.3 by ground. He had 6 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on 6 targets by air, 5 first downs. 33% of his touches either went for a touchdown or a first. He had 6 touches of 10 plus, which was 29%, and 98 of his 189 yards were on touchdowns. So that was pretty impressive as well. 14 of his 21 touches went for 4 yards or fewer, which was 67%. It was pretty surprising. They won that game 40-3. Derrick Henry. So as far as the good, 28 carries, 87 yards, 1 touchdown. He averaged 3.1 yards per attempt, but that's okay. He caught 2 passes for 45 yards on 2 targets. He also completed 2 passes, including the game-winning 3-yard touchdown to Austin Hooper. He had 5 first downs. This is where it gets kind of iffy, but overall, I'm sold on him as an A grade, since I'm not going to give Samaje Perine a grade at all for his limited role, even though he did score 3 touchdowns. But Derrick Henry, 5 first downs, 18% either went for a touchdown or a first. He only had 1 carry of 10 plus, and now that's only 4%. And then the 7 total touchdown yards, which is 5% of his total yardage. And 20 of his 28 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. Combine that with what happened last week, man, he's really hit a wall on the ground. But this performance, he was the reason that they won this game. He's, I would say, 60% of the reason that they won this game. But yeah, moving on. A plus grade, no surprise here. Receiver, we have Amari Cooper going up against Dane Jackson. So 38 routes, 12 targets, 8 receptions, 113 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 touchdown yards, or 28% of his total yardage. He had 5 first downs on his 8 receptions. So 88% were touchdowns or firsts. He averaged 2.97 yards per route run. Wasn't the highest, but 14.1 yards per reception and a 136.5 targeted passer rating. I mean, he did what he could to keep the Browns from losing this game, but of course the Bills took it. T. Higgins. All right, so he didn't score the touchdowns, and everyone wants touchdowns. So we get the most points for those. I get it, and so do the teams in the NFL, right? But T. Higgins, man, he was just phenomenal. 33 routes, 13 targets. He caught 9 for 148 yards. He had 8 first downs. That's 89% were touchdowns or firsts. He averaged 4.48 yards per route run to lead all receivers in week 11, 16.4 yards per reception, 107.2 targeted passer rating. He secured receptions of 24, 13, 12, 17, 12, 16, 33, and 15 yards. And he also left for several plays when he landed hard on his back. So, and they won that game 37-30. He was the MVP of the game, by the way, for me, not P. Ryan. Even though I do respect P. Ryan scoring 3 touchdowns, it was T. Higgins that kept that offense moving. But B grades, Joe Burrow definitely played a role. He gets the B. He gets one of the Bs. 24 out of 39, 62%, 355 passing yards. He had 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I only saw one of them though. I missed the other one. I haven't gone back to look at it. I know the one that I saw. No, actually, I did see both of them. The first one wasn't his fault. It was tipped. The second one wasn't his fault. Did the interception that T.J. Watt made on that play, where he was being pushed backwards to the ground and still had enough spring in his legs to jump and extend for that interception at the line, was incredible. But Burrow, 104.1 passer rating, which is very misleading, 9.1 yards per attempt. So they won that game, of course. Ryan Tannehill, he was the other 40% of that victory. And sorry, Treylon Burks. Ryan Tannehill, 22 out of 27, completed 81% of his passes, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, 127.3 passer rating, 12.3 yards per attempt. It was a very close call between the top 4 here. So I do think overall, based off of Dalton's the A+, no question there. He was almost flawless. And then Brissett, he gets bumped up just out of facing, I think, the most difficult challenge of the 3 quarterbacks at the top. So Josh Jacobs gets a B. 24 carries, 109 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And he also caught 3 passes for 51 yards, which, he's really been the beneficiary of Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller landing on IR the last 2 games. Caught 3 of 4 targets. He had 6 first downs, which was 25% 25% of his carries went for a first down. 4 runs of 10 plus, 17%. 12 of his 24 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. It's 50%. That's not that bad, actually. And then they won that game 22-16 in OT. David Montgomery. So, the Bears, they're just losing just these games by just a point or 3. And really, as soon as they get a couple players into this offense, this team's just going to turn around. Maybe a couple players on defense as well. But 17 carries, 67 yards. He had 1 rushing touchdown. It was only 3.9 yards per carry, but he also caught 3 passes for 54 yards on 4 targets. He had 4 first downs. And so 29% were either touchdown or first. He only had 1 run of 10 plus, but he had multiple runs called back on holds, only 2 touchdown yards. But 11 of his 17 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. And he was the target on Justin Fields' INT on the final play. But I thought Montgomery was better than his final line suggested. And they lost that game. Devontae Adams, he's had 2 big games. I'm done listing him as a target to avoid, by the way. You just never know what this guy's going to do. But, so 37 routes, 13 targets, 7 receptions, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 4 first downs. So 86% of his catches went for a touchdown or a first. 3.81 yards per route run, 20.1 yards per reception. And I mean, the guy had only caught a few passes of 20 plus, and then he comes out and averages 20. 131.7 targeted passer rating. So at the end of the first drive, he had 3 catches for 40 yards, but then he disappeared. Well, and then, he definitely concluded the first half. He had both of his or one of his touchdown passes. I think he was close to 100 yards at the end of the first half, but he disappeared during the second half. 1 catch, 12 yards on 7 targets. That's both of his big performance in the last couple of weeks. He completely disappeared in the second half. And he also was called for a 15-yard on sportsmanlike conduct penalty that really hurt the team when they had the lead. But then he came back in overtime and he caught the game-winning 35-yard touchdown. Had he not done that, I would have been justified in listing him as a target to avoid. But overtime, it saved his day. So they won that game 22-16. Wan'Dale Robinson. So first career 100-yard game, 34 routes, 13 targets, 9 100 0, 5 first downs, 56% of his catches went for a first down, 2.94 yards per route run, 11.1 yards per reception. They lost that game surprisingly to the Lions 31-18, and that's where we get to the biggest second half improvements is Daniel Jones at quarterback. First half, and this is the only quarterback it was a crazy week, and this is the closest thing to a second half improvement that I could find. First half, 11 out of 19, 58%. He had 149 passing yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 61.1 passer rating, 7.8 yards per attempt. He had 4 carries for 20 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Second half, obviously playing from a negative script, 16 out of 25 passing for 64%. It was a modest 10% improvement. He threw for 192 yards. He threw 1 touchdown, did throw an interception. Got a 100.1 passer rating, which was a 39% improvement, and around the same yards per attempt at 7.7. Also added 3 carries for 30 yards additional on the ground for the guy that Saquon Barkley calls Vanilla Vic. So they lost that game. Devin Singletary. So in the first half, he had 8 carries for 27 yards, 3.4 yards per carry. He had 1 catch on 1 target for 5 yards. He only had 1 touch in the first quarter, and it was a target. At the end of the half, though, 2 first downs, 25%. He had 0 runs of 10 plus. 4 of his 8 carries went for 4 yards or fewer, so half, not bad. Second half, though, 10 carries, 59 yards, and a touchdown. That's 5.9 yards per attempt. That's a 43% improvement. Caught his lone target for 6 yards. He had 2 first downs, which 30%. Either went for a touchdown or a first. He had 3 runs of 10 plus, had 5 touchdown yards, and 6 of his 10 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. So actually went up, but yeah, they won that game 31-23. Christian Watson. So here's the reason why the Packers are, they're just not going anywhere this year. So first half, Christian Watson, after his monster game last week, 9 routes. He had 1 target, and he caught it for a 14-yard touchdown. Okay, so he only had 1.56 yards per route run in the first half. He only had 1.48 in the second half. But second half, 23 routes, and he saw 5 targets, 3 that he caught, 34 yards, another touchdown. It's just ridiculous. Why aren't the Packers throwing to this guy? They should have been throwing to him in every healthy game that he played this year. And that's why they're not going to the playoffs. Darius Slayton, first half, he had 19 routes. He caught 1 of his 3 targets for 17 yards. That's 0.89 yards per route run. He had 26 routes. In the second half, he caught 4 for 69 yards and on 7 targets for 2.56 yards per route run. That's a 65% improvement. Yeah, you can kind of tell from the names on that list and the numbers that the big second half improvements were not big at all. So the D grades. Lamar Jackson, man, this guy has just been, and yeah, the weather was blah. It's cold, okay? And we see in college, I use college as the example because of we have a lot more of a sample size, and we've actually seen a ton of games played in cold weather and 15-mile-an-hour winds this year, and there's tons of guys that go out there. You look at the Hawaii offense, every game they play at home, they got 20-mile-an-hour winds. They still move the ball. Now, I'm not using it as an excuse here. I need to see some poor conditions, snow, fog, rain, sleet, hail, something, before I'm going to be convinced that anything, under 15 or under is going to be that detrimental to an offense. And Lamar Jackson just, man, he sucked it up the last several weeks. for, somebody that where he was drafted and what you pay for him in DFS. So 25 out of 24 out of 33, 73%. It's 209 yards. And that's actually good for him lately. 0 touchdowns, one INT, 76.5 passer rating, 6.3 yards per attempt. This guy's got a big arm. I don't get it. And I understand Bateman's hurt. I guess Andrews he's still banged up and all that. But man, and then only 11-31 and 1 touchdown on the ground. That's 2.8. They're lucky they won that game 13-3. They're lucky Baker Mayfield was on the other side because he gets the other D grade. No surprise here. It's a D or an F for the quarterbacks for Carolina almost every week. There was the one week that PJ got an A though, which is just crazy. But Baker Mayfield, 21 out of 33. He completed 64%, 196 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 54.6 passer rating, 5.9 yards per attempt, which take away one of the interceptions, and it's essentially what Lamar Jackson did. So that should really open anyone's eyes that are questioning the Lamar Jackson grade. And he led Carolina to 3 points. I mean, put Sam Darnold in there. I don't even know what to do there. Joe Mixon, 7 carries, 20 yards, 2.9 yards per attempt. He had 0 first downs, 0 runs of 10 plus. 6 of his 7 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. That's 86%. And his final carry went for 7 yards to keep that number from 100%. He caught 3 passes for 42 yards on 3 targets. Only reason he gets a D. Kenyon Drake, man, I was so disappointing. Lost a bit of money on him. 10 carries, 46 yards, 4.6 yards per attempt. He had 1 carry, and one first down, 10%, 1 run of 10 plus 10%. After 3 quarters, he had 5 carries for 2 yards. And overall, 8 of his 10 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. He caught 2 of his 4 targets for 7 yards. Deontay Johnson. So he played 96% of the offensive plays, ran 42 routes. He had 5 targets. He caught 4 of them for 21 yards. He had 1 first down, 0.5 yards per route run, 4.2 yards per reception. Wow. Tyler Boyd, 33 routes. I mean, this was a good game. This was a good matchup for him. 33 routes, 6 targets. He caught 2 for 42 yards, 2 first downs. They both occurred like within 4 plays of each other, and 1.27 yards per route run. But those 2 receptions, they did boost the drive that went on to produce the game-winning points. He gets a D. Nobody's going to be surprised here. Zach Wilson gets the F. And I'm fine with an F minus. You can't call the weather into play here. Look at what Mac Jones did on the other side. He completed like 80-something% of his attempts for 250 yards, almost 10 yards per attempt. It's not weather related. Zach Wilson just blows. He's terrible. 9 completions, 22 attempts. That's 41%. This guy should be benched. 77 passing yards. He had a 50.8 passer rating, 3.5 yards per attempt. You better run for 26 yards on the ground. He led the Jets to 3 points. That is not a playoff team, even as good as their defense is. They may have the best defense in the league, and they definitely have the worst offense. Kirk Cousins, 12 out of 23, 52%, 105 passing yards, no touchdowns or INTs, 64.6 passer rating, 4.6 yards per attempt. He gets an F, but I would call it more of an F plus. There's a serious concern in Minnesota because Justin Jefferson, it looks like he has a turf toe injury, and it's a massive concern for this offense. They're built around Jefferson. I mean, Adam Thielen's he's pretty long in the tooth. He's not separating these days, so not looking good for the 8-2 Vikings. Saquon Barkley, 15 carries, 22 yards. That's 1.5 yards per attempt, 0 first downs, 0 runs of 10 plus. 15 of those 15 carries went for 4 yards or fewer. So over the last 2 weeks, his first quarter tally against the Texans and the Lions, 16 carries, 33 yards, 2.1 yards per carry. He caught 2 passes for 13 yards on 5 targets. And the interception that Daniel Jones threw, man, that's not his fault. He was, or the interceptions that he threw. He's trying to get that offense down the field. I'm not usually a Daniel Jones apologizer. This was Saquon. The run game. I mean, they put in Matt Breida and he runs for a touchdown. This was all Saquon. I don't know what the deal was. So the rookie face plan of the week is Dameon Pierce. Not even close. 10 carries, 8 yards, 0.8 yards per carry, 0 first down, 0 runs of 10 plus, obviously. 10 of his 10 carries went for 4 yards or fewer, 100%. He caught two of his 3 passes for 9 yards. He was just a non-factor. Justin Jefferson gets the F. I know it's kind of unfair. He's hurt. But what we paid for him in DF, or what some people may have paid for him in DFS, and where he was drafted, this is just a killer to the fantasy world. 23 routes, 5 targets. He caught 3 for 33 yards, 2 first downs, 1.43 yards per route run. They lost by 37. Justin Jefferson in a game that the Vikings are losing by that amount. I mean, he should have seen like 17 targets based off of how frequently Kirk Cousins goes and looks his way. This is a serious injury concern. The other F is it's not going to surprise anybody. Kadarius Toney, after what he did last week, comes out 20 routes, 2 targets, didn't catch anything. They won that game 30-27. That's all we have this week for Monday grades. And, it was a tough one. It was brutal for a lot of the people we thought would produce. But, hey, that's how it goes. And it's like they say, any given Sunday, have a good day.